Hi, and welcome to the second section of the course, Kotlin Basics. In this section, we'll be talking about the building blocks of the language, functions and properties. We'll see how Kotlin has optional and named function arguments. We're going to talk about control flow structures, and we're going to see how Kotlin has type inference. In this video, we're going to talk about properties and something that's specific to Kotlin, late initialized properties. We're going to see how to declare them, how to initialize them, what are mutable, what are read-only properties, how Kotlin properties called from Java, and how you can call Java getters and setters from Kotlin. And we're going to talk about this late initialized properties. Okay, let's get to it and see some code. So first, let's see how Java does properties. Java also has properties, and they're expressed with getter and setter methods. Usually you would have in Java a private field, which then has a getter or setter method. Kotlin doesn't have this. Kotlin has properties, and this is a full feature of the language. So we've already seen how you can declare properties inside of a constructor, and this would be the equivalent of this Java class. Two fields initialized in a constructor, and one of them is mutatable and one of them is read-only. In Kotlin, if your properties can be mutated, this means that it has to be declared with var keyword. If it's a read-only, then it's declared with val keyword. You can also declare properties as outside of the constructor. So for example, let's add a public mutatable property of color, which is of type of string, and here we'll see that compiler is complaining, issuing an error because we haven't initialized the property. This is because Kotlin aims to be a type-safe language, and if I now initialize the property, the error is gone. Kotlin also doesn't have fields like Java has. It has private properties which are accessed, actually defined with a private visibility modifier. You can see here that I've omitted for my property and for the class the visibility modifier because it's public by default, and if I add public, I'll get a compiler warning. So let's remove it, and let's add a private read-only field. Let's say a seat count, and let's say all of our cars can have seat count of 4, and you can see here that I've omitted the type, but because Kotlin has type inference, we know, actually compiler knows that we're operating on integer type, and we can check it here. Also, semicolons, unlike Java, are optional, and you can see that again compiler is saying that this is redundant. Sometimes you have to initialize your properties after your constructor fires, after your constructor is being called. Dependency injection is one good example, or Android activities. Usually in an Android activity, if you want to access views, you do it in the onCreate method, and this gets executed after activity constructor gets called. That's the reason why Kotlin has a keyword called lateInit, and when you define your property with lateInit keyword, then you can omit the initializer. So for example, let's add a property of, let's say, maker, which is of type string, and you can see that compiler here is not complaining because I haven't initialized the property. That's why, because I've marked it as lateInit. One thing to note is if you try to access a lateInit property which hasn't been initialized, the runtime will throw uninitialized property exception. Let's see how you can call Kotlin properties from Java. So let's quickly create a new instance of our Kotlin car. Doesn't matter what we use for construction. And if we try to access Kotlin properties, we can see in Java that these are getter and setter methods, which is great for Java interoperability. So let's, for example, say that we want to set the model to something else, and we would do this by calling standard Java setter method. The same thing applies in Kotlin. If for example, let's try to construct the car class defined in Java. Need here an initializer. model, let's say model B and true. And you can see that here I don't have getters and setters because Kotlin compiler transferred Java getters and setters into properties. So this is how, because I'm in Kotlin, I'm operating on Java getter and setter, but in Kotlin it looks like I'm operating on a property. So let's change this to a model.